today's video, we're going to be breaking down the top 3 exotic class item options for Warlocks in the final shape. And today we're joined by our resident Warlock main slash well skating god.
Okay. Oh my god, I got my swagger back. Let's run this shit, Ice.
GMEINERS, thank you for joining me, dude. What's good?
What is good? Feels probably pretty nice to be talking to the D2's movement demon.
No, but on a real note, GMEINERS is an amazing player. He plays multiple classes. He's done a ton of informational content, build videos, all sorts of stuff on his YouTube channel. So if you guys haven't checked out his content before, everything will be linked down in the description below. And he's joining us today to cover the top 3 exotic class item combos for Warlock. We just did the Hunter video with ATP, so I figured I'd bring the homie G on, and we'll go over the Warlock stuff today. We have an amazing resource not only behind us with the Destiny Bulletin image putting together in a nice format for you guys. Again, shout out to them. Also, we use a resource called the Destiny Data Compendium. I'm sure you've used it many times. I shouted it out in the last video. I will also have that linked down in the description below. It just any information you guys could possibly be looking for on any subclass buffs, debuffs, exotic perks, class item perks, how long things last, buff duration, damage stacking, like it's all there. And it's an amazing resource, so highly recommend you guys check that out if you haven't already. And this is going to transition us into the next part of the video. So G, if you were to get rid of 3 exotic perk options from column 1 of the Warlock's exotic class item, which ones would you get rid of? In the sense of, like, I think they're maybe good or they have potential, but with the Warlock Prismatic kit, they just don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, number 1, I'd probably go with Necrotics. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people really love their Necrotics, but I just don't think it really fits into the Prismatic build that much. I also don't think it's like that great to really play Warlock around your melee abilities, depending on the setup you have. So I think that's probably number 1 for me. Filaments, because if you're on Prismatic, you should probably always just be running Devour natively. I think Filaments could be good if you want Devour, and for whatever reason, you have a very effective build that doesn't use Feed the Void. But in most cases, I don't think you're going to be on something like that. And then the third is just Stag. I don't think you really need that DR that much, plain and simple. I don't know, 25% is good, but I don't see myself playing with Rift quite as much.
The only situation I could think of like Stag is if maybe you're pairing a like Song of Flame Warlock with a Well of Radiance after the nerf, and you want like even more DR potentially to just sit there and kind of tank boss damage like in the old days, I guess. And then Spirit of the Ophidian. I'm just not a PvP player, at least not that often. It, like, to me in PvE, that just doesn't have much value. The last one for me would actually be Spirit of the Assassin. And that one might be kind of a hot take. In a lot of situations, when I think of a Warlock's kit, I think of healing with either Phoenix Dive or a Rift, or I think of like just they're like the grenade subclass, like that you obviously, and Prismatic has Vortex and Storm Grenades, which are 2 extremely strong grenades. They also have Threadlings. The melee's like, yeah, you have Snap, which is solid. You have the, what is it, the Arcane Needle, and those are solid like for unraveling and things of that nature. But like, I don't know if I would necessarily build around a Warlock subclass of going Invis when you have, when it's literally like verbs the subclass. Like you have Devour, you have Restoration with some of the fragments, you've got Amplify, and you're constantly healing. Like it just seems unnecessary almost, and I would rather build more into the strength of like what Prismatic Warlock does best. Yeah, those are the ones I would get rid of. It would be Filaments, Ophidian, Assassin out of column 1 for me. What about column 2?
Column 2, I'm going with Swarm. It only does half of what it usually does, so like I don't think blowing up a Tangle on top of having, I think it's still probably a native 12-second cooldown on creating a Tangle, not to mention having pretty limited strand abilities to like make them. I just don't think those two Threadlings are doing anything for you, build-wise, damage-wise, anything like that. Vesper, I think for Vesper, the 2 biggest appeals are the insane regen that you get when using it when in proximity to enemies for your class ability, and then also the Blind, which if the Blind didn't exist, it wouldn't even be usable in things like GM builds and stuff. So you basically took the 2 only good things from it and ripped it off, and now you just have like a crappy little arc pulse that does damage. And then Starfire. My biggest appeal to Starfire, especially the recent Starfire builds ever since the nerf that I've run, have been having 2 grenades that are obviously really, really strong, but they're also going to explode twice. So they're dealing double damage native to the solar subclass. And then you also have Ember of Benevolence. So if you're casting Rift, you can have your teammates hop in that and get those to regen really, really quickly.
True.
You just don't really have any of that with Starfire in the Prismatic setup. I don't think Starfire really fits any build.
Damn, those are some really good points, actually, because I think, like, on the surface, people think back to the Starfire days of, like, spam, or they think of it with Touch of Flame and how powerful grenades can be on Solar Warlock. But yeah, like, without Touch of Flame, it does kind of seem like a dead perk. That's a really good point.
Even if you got good regen out of this, you still also have Verity in this column, so then you're still not really getting a damage bonus out of it. It honestly feels like a weird pick for the second column, because most of the regen ones are based in the first, like Hoyle, Osmio, stuff like that.
Right.
But
I think I'm pretty much in agreement on these. I think the only other one that I would call out is Spirit of the Claw. I mean, I guess if you're using it with Arcane Needle, it could be decent just to build. And this is a point you made in kind of like our pre-call, is like it could build darkness energy by like unraveling targets. So like Claw, yeah, I guess you could make an argument for that, but I don't know. There's some really powerful perks specifically in column 2, and we're going to be diving into those now. So now that we've kind of eliminated a few that we don't want, what are the top 3 perk combinations you're looking for?
So number 1 seed for me, just based on when I actually think I'd be realistically using Prismatic over other subclasses, I have Apotheosis plus Star Eater scales. Star Eater's obviously for the 70% increased super damage, and then if you combine that with Apotheosis, you have ability spam afterwards. I would probably take this and right now lean towards Needlestorm with Threadling grenades. And I think the nice part about this, even if you don't want to run that for like your mid-game ad clear getting to damage phase, as long as you keep your super the same and don't change your fragments, you can hot swap abilities and get them back once you cast your super. So if you don't want to use Threadling grenades, you don't have to for pre-damage. But the main appeal for this is with Euphony, you cast your super and then throw a bunch of Threadling grenades after with Apotheosis, and you stack up, I think you get up to 50% or double damage or something with Euphony, and that's a really good DPS weapon right now that also just relies on special. So it's kind of like the a still hunt equivalent for locks right now.
That's really interesting. And obviously, like, not a lot of people have Euphony just yet, but people are going to be farming the raid like crazy. You're going to want to farm for this, so the moment you do get that exotic someday, like, that's for sure one you're going to want to look out for.
Okay, number 2 is Hoyle plus Verities. Verities, obviously, just for the death throw stacks. As you get them, each stack up to 5 stacks is 20% more damage, so you can get double damage for grenades. I opted for Hoyle just based on the Compendium's description of Osmios. I feel like Hoyle can just be potentially a safer thing to use, or at least to get in case Osmios ever get nerfed on the class item. The constant regen, or cycling all 3, I think it's 800% additional base regen. So yeah, if everything's regenning like 800 times, not 800, 800% faster, it's really good. And then specifically those nades are dealing double damage.
So what would you use, I guess, with Verity if you were to empower like a storm grenade?
I'd probably always go with Indebted Kindness. If I'm on a Void Nade and my exotic slot's free right now, since pulses are good, I'd probably go with Graviton Lance. And then I might opt to stay a bit. I'm not a big fan of Threadling grenades, but if I had to run Threadlings, I'd probably just do the Call or Rufus's Fury.
And then what is your third combo that you're looking for?
So those 2 I felt were definitely like the 2 strongest like standout ones. Third one's probably a whole extra tier down, but I have Apotheosis Verity. This one's a lot more niche, I think. But it kind of goes back to like using it to nuke bosses in Vow of the Disciple, things like that. So if you can get your stacks up high for double grenade damage, then cast the super, then chuck a bunch of nades, they're really high damage. They should be double damage nades, and you should be able to spam them. I saw this as like a realistic one that you could that certain players could use to bake specific bosses, even though it's pretty niche.
Dude, honestly though, if Verity does work with Song of Flame, I don't think that's that niche of a pick anymore. Apotheosis I think would lose a little bit of value though, because like the grenade regen is already like so ridiculous. You'd probably go with something else maybe, but yeah, dude, that's pretty wild. So we had some overlap. I think those are all like really interesting options. There's one perk that I'm surprised you didn't mention. And I don't know if maybe you just haven't played around with it just yet, but right now, one of the craziest perks that I've been playing around with, and I literally got it to drop last night, which is my first combination, is Osmiomancy and Harmony. I don't know if the description just reads wrong on Destiny Data Compendium, or if it's just operating differently than intended in game. But if you guys think back to like what OG Controverse did, where you would charge your Void Grenade, throw the grenade, and you get roughly like 50 to 75% of your grenade back. Right now with Osmiomancy, you can pretty much do that on any damage grenade and get about a 50% refund, as long as it tags 2 to 3 targets. And if one of them happens to be, you know, a major or a mini boss, it's like a guaranteed 50%. And because Warlock grenades are so strong, as we've mentioned multiple times, like if you happen to get a kill and proc Devour, Osmiomancy will carry the first 50% of your regen, and the second 50 will be carried by Devour, literally cycling your grenade within 5 seconds. Like, and with the strength of the grenades that the Warlock has, that's very, very powerful. The other reason I chose Harmony was because I feel like Song of Flame is such a powerful super, not only for DR, but also the grenade that comes with it and the snap melee that comes with it, like combined does so much damage. Like it absolutely nukes subjugators. It destroys tormentors. It provides a ton of ability regen to your team, tons of DR for you. Like overall, probably one of the most flexible supers in the game that, like, honestly, it surprised me. I wasn't sure how good it was going to be when I watched the Final Shape trailer, and getting hands on it, it's become like one of my favorites. I absolutely love it.
I have, what do I have? I have an Osmiomancy Verity set up. I've used it a bit here and there. And I know Compendium has like some different info on the energy you get back, but I've been told it's nuts. My thing is, if it's giving up to 50% back for every grenade, I could see it potentially getting nerfed.
Yeah.
But also I know Devour is giving a lot of energy back too. So I think right now as it stands, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, if you guys are looking to lean into a neutral game combo, like that is your combo. The second one to avoid, I guess, like just going on and on about how good Osmiomancy is, I would say probably Hoyle Verity. I believe you had a similar combo. And then I also have a similar one to you with Apotheosis Star Eaters. There's so much potential with that combo. Like, even with stuff that's maybe not even in the game yet. Like, we never know what fragments or potential aspects they could add to Prismatic down the line. Like, they've done that with Strand and Stasis before. Yeah, dude, that one for sure. I'm glad we're aligned on that one. What's like an honorable mention or one you think is potentially underrated?
For Lock, maybe just having Synthoceps so that, you know, you have that one punch, one kill ability just on like a red bar here or there. It's definitely weird. There's some times where just like playing simpler can be better than speccing into some full build that has the chance to fail or requires you to play with more of a brain than you want to play with. And so
if you were to pick, or I guess just highlight a couple fragments that you would use with Prismatic Warlock, what are some that stand out to you right away?
Facet of Dawn, I think this is true for most subclasses. Like even Hunter, I know it's very good. Radiant on melee hits. If you have Arcane Needle, you have 3 charges. I think it's only 5 seconds. You can feather those in as much as you want to kind of give yourself like 15 seconds. Use Apotheosis, maybe get more time. Courage, 10% increased ability damage to dark debuffed enemies. I don't know if it's as good on Lock, but like I said, if you can use your darkness things like Unraveling Rounds from Arcane Needle, throw a nade, 10% stacking damage is always good to have. And you can pair that with Dominance. So if you're on Void Nade, Vortex, or your Arc Nade, which is Storm, you have Weaken or Jolt. So that's going to also pair with Courage to just hit harder. Yeah.
Such a good, I think one that stands out for me is Facet of Balance. Where killing enemies with light damage grants 10% melee energy, and then killing enemies with darkness damage grants 10% grenade energy. And when you're constantly interchanging that, like either you're using the Call, you're using Indebted, this applies to both weapon damage and ability damage. So if you're either interchanging with your kit, you know, maybe you run Arcane Needle and a Storm Grenade, they're feeding each other constantly. I think Protection goes without saying as well. An additional 15% DR when you're surrounded by enemies is always just a bonus when you're in those squeaky bum situations. And then you have Purpose, which I think it might be the strongest overall fragment of Prismatic in general, where Orbs of Power grant elemental buffs on pickup. So if I'm on Song of Flame, I get Restoration ×1 for 5 seconds. If I'm on Strand, I get Woven Mail, Stasis, Frost Armor, Void, Overshield, Arc Amplified. Like, yeah, we have Devour, which is great, but like imagine you're on Needlestorm and every time you pick up an Orb of Power that you're just spitting out like crazy, you just get an additional, what is it, 45% DR from woven mail. Like, that's just insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
I think that's gonna do it for the video. I think this was a really dope conversation, G. Thank you for joining and taking part of it, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, I think, honestly, I've been having a ton of fun with this, so it's cool to get other people's perspectives and chat about this stuff, because, like, even as a creator, I've felt a little overwhelmed, like, trying to dig through everything and figure out, like, what's good.
Dude. I mean, Prismatic is crazy, and then you add 64 different options to play with, so it's understandable.
It's a lot. If you guys at home haven't checked out GMEINERS' channel already, he has always done super informational content. Recently, he's been going towards like super funny, awesome challenges on his YouTube channel. So make sure you go check him out. And then I will also have all of the resources that we've used in today's video linked down in the description below. And if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a thumbs up, leave a sub, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.